Takong natawhan ning kinabuhi ko, akong itugyan ning kasing-kasing ko, perme lang kasubo tungod sa gobyerno nga dili pa ato.
Ining maong awit, nagsugilo sa pakigbisog alang sa kagawasan sa atong mga Cebuanong revolusyonaryo. Ang sudlon ang ilang tinago nga kampo, patok sa mga sumasakop nga Katsila ug Amerikano. Naginaot ko nga ang atong mga batan karon, maminaw nini para ilang mangguhan nga ang ilang problema dili lang ilaha, kundili shared na problem kini. Diin ang hinahanglan ug shared nga kasubaran alang sa kayuhan sa katilingbanong Pilipino.
Ngadto sa sudlon, dili kita muunem niya ng taong malupikon na maoy nagbalikya sa atong nasyon.
Oh, Pilipinas, yuta kong natawhan ning kinabuhi ko, akong itugyan ning kasing-kasing ko, pirmi lang gasubo tungod sa gobyerno nga dili pa ato. Tala na mga igsuon, mamauli na kita nga to sa sudlon. Dili kita munen sa mga taong malupigon nga maoy nagbaligya sa atong nasyon.
Kinsa bakahang dili mabalaka, kinsa bakahangoy amo sa patriya, kinsa bakahang dili mabalaka nga wala hatagi sa independensya.
Ning kasing-kasing ko, pirmi lang gasubo tungod sa gobyerno nga dili pa ato. Tala na mga igsuon, mamauli na kita nga to sa sudlon. Dili kita munen sa mga taong malupigon nga maoy nagbaligya, nga maoy nagbaligya. Tala na mga igsuon, mamauli na kita nga to sa sudlon. Dili kita munen sa mga taong malupigon nga maoy nagbaligya sa atong nasyon.
Pilipinas,
Maayong hapon sa tanan. Pamgras de Cebu Heritage Hotel in partnership with the tour guides of Cebu with FLOG and also with other partners, the University of San Carlos Center for Social Research and Education, the Central Visayas Association of Museums, the Andy Heritage Center, and so on 2020 present to you this event, this hybrid event, um, Guerrilla, the war in Cebu versus Japan. Conversations on Cebuano resistance versus the Japanese occupation with historian Dr. Jobers Reyes Bersales. Daghang salamat for being with us once again. So we thank all the tour guides who are here. So this event, these conversations, these very exciting, informative conversations this afternoon is especially requested by our tour guides in Cebu. So may we show the tour guides? Can we, may we show them? Oh, nai mask. Oh, we have, do we have the air purifier here? So we have the tour guides of Cebu. They specially requested this informative event this afternoon because this is for to aid them in their also in their work as and in their job as they tour the domestic and local tourists in different parts of Cebu. So of course, our tour guides want also to educate our tourists and not just to speak about um, false news so or fake news. So they want to also educate our tourists of what really happened in Cebu's past. So daghang salamat to our tour guides and also to our partners. And right now, this hybrid event is also being broadcast at the pages of the Central Visayas Association of Museums, the Andy Heritage Center, so on 2020, and also at the page of the National Quincentennial Committee. So we would also like to let you know that December is a month of celebrations. So yesterday we celebrated the feast of the Immaculate Conception, and also we would be celebrating the Christmas this December 25. So you would know that at the Gerilya Independencia of Pamgar Cebu Heritage Hotel, we are displaying a, a heritage Belen. So it is a depiction of Christmas. It is a depiction of the Christmas story. An 80-year-old Belen, Belen nga kabilin, by Lola Lalingo Heverola. So it is now at the Pangras de Cebu Heritage Hotel, Gerilya Independencia, and we thank the Hiverola family and also the curator of this Belen right now, USC, University of San Carlos Professor Dr. Zona Saniel Amper. So aside from Christmas, we also celebrate this December 16, we commemorate the first staging of a play at the oldest theater in Cebu, Teatro Honquera, and that's December 16. So that's in 1890s was the exact date. So, and also this December 29, December 24, Christmas Eve is the 124th year of the victory of the Cebu Revolution against Spain. And on December 29 is also the Thanksgiving Mass 124 years ago, celebrated at the cathedral. So there would be a celebration here at Pangras, Pasko sa Kagawasan. And of course, we will also celebrate Rizal Day. And on December 31, Tagbo 2023, it is a celebration to meet the new year. It's a New Year's Eve celebration on December 31. So it's a full pack December. So daghang salamat for celebrating these events, these important events with us. So so we would also like to recognize the participants. So we have our on-site audience. We have our audience connected with FLOG Cebu and other tour guides organizations, Cebu tour guides organizations here who are here. So thank you for joining. And also get ready with your questions for our own. Usually we have many or two or three panelists or resource persons, but right now we have a very special resource person who knows everything. So he is a know-it-all. So it's okay to have only one resource person because he can answer everything. If he can't answer right now, he can answer in the future. so, so we would like to recognize our participants, our online participants who registered. So we have uh, those who registered and said that they came from these institutions or these organizations and these schools from Western Bicutan National High School, Upper Bicutan Elementary School, Paulina Manalo Elementary School, Taguig Integrated School, Bagong Tanyag Elementary School, Ricardo P. Cruz Elementary School, Aguho Elementary School. So these are all in Luzon. Um, Ubusan Elementary School, Eusebio Santos Elementary School, Captain Eddie Reyes Integrated School, Palar Integrated School, the Schools Division, DepEd Schools Division of the Gig City and Pateros, and we have someone from Laguna State Polytechnic University. And we also have from Samar National School, so we have from the Visayas, from Santa Ana Elementary School, Gat Andres Bonifacio Elementary School, Eastern Visayas State University. Thank you to our audience in Eastern Visayas. Also from Negros Oriental State University, from CTU, Cebu Technological University. We have also someone from the University of the Philippines, Cebu. And we have an audience connected with the Sacred Heart School, Ias de Jesus. Dan, salamat for joining us. I guess this is for the first time that someone from Sacred Heart School, Ihas de Jesus, is joining us, and of course from FLOG. And from Mindanao, we have from DepEd Bayabas District. From which part in Mindanao is this? Do we know? This is from Davao and also from University of Science and Technology, Southern Philippines. So daghang salamat for joining us. Daghang salamat also to those who are online now with us. And CT in from the National Quincentennial Committee page. Good afternoon, maayong hapon. Also, so we invite you to share this Facebook Live event. So we would also like you to know that we have a trivia quiz with prizes. So and we have special prizes from Palmgrass and also Flag that our tour guides organization also have special gifts for those who would answer the questions. So thank you, Daniel Nino Papklihan, for joining, and also we have also Ferdi Aparticio, and also we have also Aya Pacheco from Bayabas, from Davao. And so daghang salamat for joining us. And Marbs, our researcher, our resource person also from Talisay City College. Daghang salamat for joining. And so now we would like to invite you also this December 29th for our next event. So our event is the Pasko sa Kagawasan to celebrate the 124th year of the Cebu victory versus Spain. We would be discussing the anting-anting of the heroes in the Visayas that aided them in the victory against the Spanish colonial rule, in the struggle against the Spanish colonial rule. So we are inviting a resource person who knows about the heroes in the different parts of the Visayas. We still need to get his confirmation for this. So and we would be listening to the Honquerachi Children's Choir who would be singing a special song on Pasko sa Kagawasan. And stay tuned for that. And on of course on December 31 is our Tagbo 2023. So, dili na ta maglangan, we would like to introduce to you our resource person. So, our resource person is a writer of many books, an author, an editor of many books on Cebu heritage and history. He is the head of the National Commission for Culture of the Arts Commission on Museums. Sakto ba? Committee, the National Committee on Museums. He is the head of the National Committee of Museums of the NCCA, and he is a professor at the University of San Carlos Department of Anthropology, Sociology, and History. He is a director of the University of San Carlos Museum, and he is also a consultant of the Cebu province on heritage. Our Suki historian, social historian, please help me welcome social historian and archaeologist, Dr. Jobers Reynes Bersales.
May hapon. May hapon ka natong tanan. It's always a pleasure to be here.
So daghang salamat, Dr. Jobers, for being with us once again. So we really asked him to be the resource person for this. He's also requested by the tour guides to be the resource person for this event, for this discussion. So Dr. Jobers is actually the editor of this book, The War in Cebu. So this is available at Palmgrass
I'm also a co-author.
and co-author. He also wrote many of the articles here in this coffee table book on the war war in Cebu,
The war.
the war in Cebu. So he also I'm so surprised when I read I- s- almost all articles and I saw that there is actually, because in the past we have been discussing about the women warriors in the Visayas from the different periods in Cebu history or Visayan history. And I saw that it's not actually just a history. This book does not just talk about the men in our story, in our past, but the women also who fought, who were in. And Dr. Jobers wrote that article. So thank you very much, Dr. Jobers, for also taking note of her story in the war against Japan in Cebu. So, so now we would like to ask this question. So if you have questions, we invite you to write your questions at the comment section as we go along. But there would also be an open forum right after the conversations. So the first question for Dr. Jobers is this. So we would like to know the factors that led to the World War II, and how did the Americans, because at that time it was the American period, it was the American colonial rule in the Philippines. How did the Americans in the Philippines and in Cebu prepare for the World War II? May we show Dr. Jobers?
Okay, that's good. So your question is what factors led to World War II? That's a long story, no? This will take about 2 weeks to answer. Let us begin with the rise of Japan as a superpower. In early 1900, Japan defeated the Russian fleet. And that was the beginning of the rise of Japan, a non-white, non-Caucasian race to become a superpower. So Japan, in World War One, Japan took the side of the Allies. Laban ang Japan sa Amerika o sa European powers against Kaiser Wilhelm sa Germany. So tuwa siya sa side sa Allies. And Japan thought nga kung suportaan lang niya ang Allies, suportaan sad siya sa iyang development. If you see Japan today, that would be like Japan probably in the 1920s, no? Dako kaayo og paspas kaayong development niya. Japanese culture is a culture of perfection, no? So tungod sa pila ka 200 ka tuig under sa samurai rule, disiplinado ang Hapon unya dunay concept of perfection in science, technology, and culture. Sa manang kita mo ang istorya sa panahon sa gubat, ang usa ka general nga Hapon mag ikibana or magtsanoy tea ceremony nga pagkahapon mo bayoneta og mga Pilipino. So you have two personalities in one in one individual in Japan, no? Nga, when the task is to go to war, they will go to war. When the task is to follow tea ceremony which takes 30 to an hour to do, they can do that at the same time, or mag-ikebana, mag-bonsai. So in Japan was like that. Kusog na kaya ang development. Nahadlok na ang Allied powers. No? As a result, ang ilang feeling was that panghimaraot ang Hapon. No? Sige siya develop, sige siya pugnan kay mahadlok ang Amerika kay dako kay ambition ang Japan over Asia kay wa man siya resources. So nag-embargo against oil, nag-embargo. And this is the story told in Japan among the Japanese that Japan was pushed to the war. Of course, it's a different story sa kita nga under sa United States. The war started basically because Japan slowly built their fleet, even if there were sanctions against building a naval fleet. Embargo yang oil, di na siya kakuwag rubber, di na siya kakuwag iron. United States, gipugnan ang yan tanang kwarta, but still Japan developed. And yesterday is not just the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. Yesterday was the start of World War II in the Pacific. When yesterday, December 8, December 7 in Hawaii was Pearl Harbor in 1941. No? So, for those of us who are familiar with the war, musimba mi sa Immaculate Conception in Ikabuntag, that we remember everything else in the afternoon, that this was the beginning of the painful 3 years of brutal Japanese occupation in the Philippines. No? And so, dapat mo sa atong hinumduman, no? That people were really preparing for the Feast of the Immaculate Conception, but they woke up nga guba na ang Clark, guba na ang naval base, ang air base sa Manila, gibumbahan na sa mga Hapon, dili ta andam sa gubat. We took a long time to prepare. Quezon asked MacArthur to come back from the United States aron iyang iandam ang Filipino Army. But we were never prepared. The war in Europe was already raging, and because puti ang Amerikano, mas giuna niya atubang ang gubat sa iyang mga kaubang mga puti nga ginahinay nag-occupy ang Europe sa Germany. So the United States concentrated most of its resources in Europe kay mas tuol man layo makayong Pilipinas. So while ready na ang ato mga sundalo na train na, walay sapatos, kuwang og may kalo, kuwang og armas. And so we were prepared, but we didn't have the defensive armor and artillery and everything. Kuwang yun kayo. So when the Japanese invaded, dali na kayo na conquer ang Pilipinas. No? Although, nag-resistance kita sa Bataan. No? We resisted for 3 months. Mao nang wa gyud maatake ang Cebu. Giatake ang Cebu the day after Bataan fell. April 10, 1942.
So, daghang salamat, Dr. Jober. So, the Americans were not prepared. So, did they foresee that Japan would attack?
Yes, if you would read Bagong Kusog, no? Kung mubasa mo sa Bagong Kusog, online naman na karon, ma-download naman na ninyo sa Cebuano Study Center website. Ma-check na ninyo. Even by 1949, andam na yun. Sige, nag-istorya ang Bagong Kusog na andam bata kung ang Hapon mugubat nato. This is at a time, kadagang kaintindahan sa Hapon, diya sa Magallanes, mga unsina ka Japanese nga tindahan, mga dagko kaay nga mga tindahan, diha nga mas nindot, mas lami, mas limpyo kaysa mga tindahan nga Pilipino, European, Insik ug Amerikano. So halos tanang mga Bisaya, Cebuano sa una, adto mo palit sa Tokyo Bazaar, Kyoto Bazaar. Bisag sige nag-istorya nga maggubat na. Amiguhon ginani mo sila kay gibawag jud mo. Nga ni gubat mo gini mga tawhan na unya ang pangwaon sa Japanese Imperial Japanese Navy or forces nga interpreter. And true enough, pag-abot sa mga Hapon, ang tanan, Eiichi, Morata, sila sa Sahara, ang manager sa Daido Boyki, mo'y gipanghimong interpreter o Gipanghimo mga kernel o mga major, mga officials. Well, na istorya dayon nga kanit sila mga espiya kuno sa mga Hapon, dili na tinuod. They were businessmen. In fact, they suffered during the Imperial Japanese administration. Gipugos ni sila og apil. Sa di sila ganahan. Daghan sa ilang napugos og apil sa Imperial Japanese. They thought nga i-liberate sila. Kay gipriso man ning mga Hapon, there were 200, 300 Japanese left in 1941. On December 8, a few hours after Pearl Harbor, giatake naman ang Manila, ang mga air bases, gidakop na tanang mga Hapon, gitago sa Basak Elementary School. 300 na sila kabuok. Pag abot sa Hapon on April 10, giliberate sila. Amin lang, mga abrin na ta sa tindahan. Hapon, no. You will serve the Imperial Rescript. You are now conscripted to the Imperial Japanese Army and the Imperial Japanese Navy. Ang dili mo apil, o tuliog. Hapon, apil.
So, Dr. Jobers, actually, we have our audience there telling us about, they think our internet is low. Is it
Okay.
slow? And then someone also is saying that, may we have the slides bigger? So,
Slow because di man ta press Japan o Korea nga dako kay ekonomiya.
so actually,
Naigo pag kita
this is
sudet.
a special connection with, supposedly this is a special connection, dedicated internet, only for farm grass and mao na siya. So anyway, so okay atong connection? Okay ra tanan atong
I
setup?
think ang reason nana is I was told nga nag-shift na ang mga telecoms to 5G. Ano nila ayuhang 4G na nangaguba sa udet.
Ah,
Ito mo nang inani ta karon so kamong naa diha sa
online?
online magagwanta ra gyud mo. Kay tuluro man ang atong kompanya sa telecoms. Hinay kaayo.
Ingon si Marbs. Thank you, Marbs, for the feedback. Okay raman, klaro raman, ma'am. Klaro di ay. So, naman siya sa talisay, dool ra kaayo. So, daghang salamat for the feedback. So now, our next question for Dr. Jobers is regarding what happened to Cebu during the Japanese invasion and during the early Japanese occupation.
Okay. In preparation for the invasion, April 9, nabalita na nga buntag ni surrender na si General King against the orders of MacArthur. Ayaw gi-surrender ang bataan. Yes, General King, hindi ko mo surrender. Wanay kaon, wanay armas, napuno na mig malaria. So surrender na si General King. He was almost court-martialed because of that decision. And so, gitelegraph na dayon sa Visayas o sa areas nga wala ma-occupy, especially Cebu. Wa man ni ma-occupy, ang Davao na-occupy, ang kaning Mindanao, daghang kay areas na occupy, ang Cebu, wa man siya strategic importance, except center siya, o siya Mina, wa siya tanan. So, gipasagdan pa ng Cebu for 3 months. On April 9, silang Colonel Cushing, engineer pa siya anak nga time, Engineer Cushing, James Cushing, sila mga Amerikano, no? Gipang bumbahan nila ang mga tulay, gibumbahan nila ang oil depot, gibumbahan nila ang VECO, no? So ang resulta, sila Chick Parsons, ang resulta, may sunog ang carbon, kaya nibali ang hangin. Kaya daghang istorya, gituyo nila para masunog ang kapil ang mga tindahan sa mga Hapon. No? So when the Japanese arrived the following day, nasunog na ng Magallanes. Because this was the commercial center of Cebu. No? Nasunog na siya diha, ang Beko, tanan. Pag suko kay mga Hapon, pag abot nila, they were expecting na daghang pagkaon nga mga mga sake, mga shoyo, mga toyo, kikuman, wala na gid. Hurot nagsunog. Accidental ko no to nga pagsunog. Pero I suspect gituyo tong sunog sa mga Amerikano. Inay mga Hapon daghang kay dagkong tindahan. At the same time, to deny the enemy any resources. Nagsige sa bomba ang Amerikano. In fact, doon ay report kating design sa atong emergency notes nga gibombahan ang Luyos Kapitolyo while nagsunog silang mga emergency nga kwarta. Kanang emergency notes diri na gibuhat sa Sugbo kay alagi ang Cebu wa pa man ma-occupy. Ang Manila occupied January 2, kita April 10. So in December ni order si Quezon nga magprinta og kwarta para masuldoan ang tanang tao nga wala pa ma-occupy. Nya gi-announce pa gyud ni office in December after the Japanese started landing in Ligayen. Doble inyong sweldo. Nya unsa may sweldo dire? No, sirado namang wala may connection sa Philippine National Bank. So a currency board was put up here nga si Julian Humalon gipa-design sa kwarta. Mao nay nahimong gerilya nga kwarta, but originally emergency notes na siya, no? Para isweldo sa mga tao dinhi. So we had a semblance of normalcy before April 10. Pag-abot sa mga Hapon, of course, control na yun nila. They occupied the Rizal Memorial Library became the headquarters of the Imperial Japanese Administration. Wa sila mo-occupy sa City Hall. Wa sila mo-occupy sa Capitol. In fact, gi-ask nila si Abeliana, kaning kagyo na dito sa Bandian, balik kay ikaw may governor o si Sulweta ba to, you just take over. Pero butangan nila hapon sa tapad, niya dili siya ka basta-basta mo pirma without the Japanese nga iyang tapad sa iyang office sign basahon sa before. No, eventually ning balik si Abeliana. All production stop, all farming stop. Kisa pa may ganahan mo kung kibaw kang kwaon ras mga hapon nga troops ang imong abot, no? Because the Japanese, they arrived here mga pila 1,700 troops as against 300 Japanese civilians. And then Cebu became a transshipment point for all the Japanese nga hinay-hinay nagkapildi, no? The Japanese were defeated in Midway. Nagkaduol ang mga Hapon niya, way kabutangan. So at any one time, there were about 15 to 25,000 Japanese troops in Cebu towards the end of the Japanese occupation. Imagine na, wa na mananom og mais, wa na mananom og saging, wa na magbuhig baboy og baka. Mukaon na sila, asan na mga kwarta? Asan kuwag pagkaon? So, ang civilians may gi-pressure og ayo. Grabe ang nahitabo sa mga civilians at this time. Kay embargohon nila mga manok. There will be times nga usa ka garrison, usa ka platoon of Japanese would go to one barrio para lang manguhag pagkaon. Para lang kwaon tanang baboy o mga baka o mga manok. Unya, kung di ka mohatag, ikay unang malitson. Ikay unang patyon, no? Ikay unang mapatay. So it was a very difficult time for us. No?
So, Dr. Jobers, so there were many areas in Cebu that was where the Japanese had their quarters or where they encamped. So what were the buildings here in Cebu City or in Cebu that was really
that were occupied?
Yes.
Well, Rizal Memorial Library became the headquarters of the Imperial Japanese Army administration. When Laurel became president of the Japanese-sponsored republic, the old consulate kanang Chiquito Bazar or Kaking manaunsa na karon as corner diya sa Juan Luna became the consulate of Japan. Kay independent naman kuno ita. Ang Cebu Normal School became the headquarters of the Visayas Kempeitai. So, tibok regional office diha nga ang Cebu Trade School kanang CTO kanang karaang building became the naval base. Ang San Carlos, Colegio de San Carlos, the old building before the war became the Sbetay detachment, which was an anti-artillery detachment. So daghang kay siya mga bomba sa basement, no? Unya duha ka anti-aircraft guns at the back. Ang San Jose mausad gi-occupy sad siya ang school, ang kumbento sa likod ay duha ka anti-aircraft guns. Unya ang port area was where the Navy occupied. Ang Cebu was occupied by the Imperial Japanese.
You did not mention
Navy.
UP Cebu.
UP Cebu was military police headquarters. No? Daghan sang gipreso diha. No? Originally, diha gidala ang tanang British o mga kanang Allied Forces Amerikano, mga puti, diha gidala sa mga Hapon pag-abot nila, gipreso. After 3 days, gida sa provincial jail. And by December, gida na sila sa University of Santo Tomas internment camp. Dito na tanang mga puti. No? Ang nabilin ra diri nga puti, ang katsila because part siya sa Axis powers o ang mga Germans. Mao sa sila nag-antos pag liberation. Mao sa sila gipangita. Ang mga daghang kay Germans din
Okay.
Mamatay gid sila pag liberation sa 1945.
Okay. So actually, our audience now is saying that our connection is okay, and we are saying hi to Dr. Jobbers is Aldrons Azarcon.
Ay,
Gibali niya ngalan. And then we have Luis Canora watching from Canada. Thank you for highlighting the heritage of Cebu. So daghang salamat, Luis, for joining and for watching. And also, good afternoon from SDO Tapat, Margie Anhareta. So our next question for Dr. Jobbers is regarding the response of the Cebuanos to the Japanese invasion and occupation.
well, doon ay mga mga Cebuano nga ning support sa Japanese occupation. Nakita man nila gyud nga ang Hapon gamhanan kaayo and to resist was sheer folly. But kinatibok ang mga baga sa katawhan sa Sugbo, nalipay naman sa mga Amerikano. When the Americans arrived in 1899, maumaw ilang gibuhat sa mga Hapon. No? Nakagipang rape, kisunog ang mga balay. Because there was a war against the Americans here. The same thing that happened sa Japanese. But ang Japanese, ni prolong yung war. Di para sa Amerikano nga, duwara ka tuig, o sa katuig to nga, humana ang gubat, gi-rebuild na sa Amerika ang ekonomiya. So by then, kusog kayo ang pro-American nga posisyon sa mga Pilipino, mga Cebuano. So when they saw the Japanese, nga brutal kayo, managpa o dili ka mo baho, paon ka, patiran ka. Nga dili yung taanad mo baho. No? Labi na kaming mga upaw, di mi ganahan mo baho. Kita mong hayag niya. Matugpahan, nag-ok-ok na problema. And the Japanese would slap. Even Archbishop Reyes, in one of the visits sa lungsod, wala siya kabaw, gisagpa siya. Arsobispo sa Cebu. No? Kaya naanad lagi ang Hapon sa kultura nila nga militaristic 200 years under sa samurai, disiplinado. So, kusog ang resistance. The first battle siya, ang first gubat, no? When MacArthur left, ingo man siya pag-organize of guerrilla resistance, but do not engage the enemy. Ayaw gawaya kay ang magantos ang civilian. Diba? Kung ambus ka, hindi ka taga-diha. So pag withdraw mo, kasi may baslan sa Hapon, ang mga namuyo on site. In fact, doon na mga posters ilang gipagawas nga mga posters, i-atras ng slide dong. There is a poster there where they warn nga o kaning warning ba nga kung na'y mahitabog usa ka sundalo within that street na po kalalaki kwaon dakpon mao'y pasanginlan. So magbantayan gid mo sa inyong dalan nga way gerilya mo. Agi niya, saan na nimo ambos. Sunugo ninyong balay, kamoy baslan. So diha ang sayop ang mga Hapon. Naanad sila ng system sa samurai nga kung na'y gubat pasanginlan ang mga taong namuyo. So kusog kay resistance. The first skirmish was in Tuburan. October pa lang na capture na sa Tuburan ilang garrison. Walo ra ka Hapong sundalo, pamatyon pas mga karaang sundalo sa revolusyon, mga tiguang na gila mga anak nga gikas revolusyon, agi pamatay ang Hapon na control ang Tuburan. So it inspired, no? October 1942, 5 pa lang kabuwan sukad niabot ang Hapon, nag-inspire na sa mga Cebuano nga pwede na itamusukol. So that's the beginning. At this time, it's still called the Cebu Guerrilla Force. It would later be called the Cebu Area Command when it's recognized by MacArthur. Then daghan na din kayo ng mga battles mo ensue. The most famous battle is the Battle of Babag. The Battle of Babag started in October 1942. Nakabantay ang mga guerrilla company, mga di pa kay unified force, mga tubo sa tubig ang mga armas gipang-convert, gipamuhat sa Danau, no? Sikat naman ang Danau mamuhat og Baltic even before the war, including mga artillery cannons, kanang mga Poso Negro nga mga pipes gamiton para kanyon. Daghang ma-embargo nila nga mga bala sa Hapon, but not ang artillery mismo. So, in the Battle of Babag, gamit na nila, kunya, daghang kayong patay nga Hapon. No? The battle, at sa ubos na nahitabo sa Lahog, and then they retreated to Babag. Ning atake ang Hapon ni Maus on November 30 and it lasted until December 6. Daggang kay bomba, marag 60 bombs ang according to Colonel Segura, marag 60 ka bomba ang gihug sa mga eroplanong Hapon sa Babag. Way nasamdan. In the end, at the Battle of Babag, usa ray namatay, ug usa man tingay nasamdan kay naigo shrapnel iyang tiil si Cushing, no? Hindi ito si Cushing. Unya ang mga Hapon nga namatay ani 650 ka buok. Giputol ilang mga laulo kay gida sa San Carlos Quadrangle kay sunugon. Unya on the way down sa mga truck gipatalikod ang tanang mga Cebuano nga naa sa dalan dili mo atubang kay moagi ang patay. Japanese man ang practice, no? Ya, gida sa San Carlos Quadrangle mo nang karon San Carlos na ikadlawon kuno sa una sa college pa ko. May istorya mga gwardiya na may dagang magmarcha sa Quadrangle. Ay, di ikaw ba 650 ka bang patay sa Battle of Babag? Ulo ray gida kay sunugon niya. Isunog box kay ipanguli sa ilang mga pamilya ang mga abo. 650 ka bang mumarcha kadlawon alas 2 sa Quadrangle. Kuwang ra ng Quadrangle na mo. Muna yung mga gwardiya may nga naguni daghang mumarcha. Nya karon COVID na wala mo marcha. Mahawa na sila.
So, Dr. Jobers, in this book by Colonel Manuel Segura, and this has also an introduction by National Artist for Literature, Dr. Risil Muarez. So, of course, the Battle of Babag is mentioned here or is described here. And there is also this introduction by Dr. Risil, and he said that one of the fiercest guerrilla groups in the country or even in Asia was the guerrilla group in Cebu. So please describe more about the guerrilla activities in Cebu during the Japanese occupation and the highlights of the battles against the Japanese.
You must remember in the whole of Southeast Asia, ang Philippines na ang nisukol sa Japanese. Indonesians welcomed the Japanese. The Malaysians welcomed the Japanese because this was Asian and they were going to give them independence. Indians supported the Japanese. It was only in the Philippines nga nag-form og guerrilla movement nga dako kayo. And in Cebu, sa gisulat pa ni Manuel Segura, mga 9,000 kasundalong Hapon ang namatay. Napay usa ka general, usa ka colonel, no, in the Battle of Gila-Gila, or was it the Battle of Babag, usa ka colonel ang napatay nila diya. Nga Hapon, dili na basta-basta ang colonel mapatay nimo. Kaya mga colonels baya og general narbi na sa opisina, magsikig mapamapa niya, mao ninyo buhaton na, mugubat mo, kini ka na, planners, ang mo implement ka na ng mga gamay og ranggo. So the fact nga, doon ay colonel napatay sa Battle of Babag, grabe gid ni ka dako ang guerrilla force sa Cebu. Hastang colonel maapil kog gubat, no? And at the end of the war, I think mga 9,000 or 20,000 man ang gisulti ni Colonel Segura nga napatay dinhi sa Cebu, no? Sa mga guerrilla. Inana ka active ato mga guerrilla, no? So that's proof nga kusog ang resistance.
Can you mention, may you mention some very big or significant battles during the war against Japan, or which part? I read this valley in, is it in Moalboal?
Tumonoy Valley.
Yes.
This is the Battle of Malalay. When the battle happened in Tumonoy, no? Just off the munisipyo sa Malbual, lakaw lang kag mga 1 kilometro nga daan, padung na nang Gaisano karon before ana na humayan. The Battle of Tumonoy happened there, no? Giambush ang pila ka companies, mag 200 ka Hapon, na wipe out sila tanan. Unya nanimaos ang Hapon, isunog ang Malbual. Manang you do not see any old houses in Malbual. Walay pre-war nga balay sa Malbual na bilin, gisunog na sa mga Hapon in retaliation for the Battle of Tumonoy. Yaning withdraw na sila sa ronda sa Malalay. There another battle ensued. And then in Compostela, the famous Battle of Gila-Gila of March 5, 1945. 43. No? It was a running battle that started in Liloan, moving towards Compostela, going up to Gila-Gila, because ang target sa mga Hapon, ang tabunan. Di man nila masunod through the Nivel Hills nga dalan. Carabao Road pa na sa una. Di na Carabao ko ng jeep makaagi. And then, dito sila sa Gila-Gila. Dito sila na abdan sa mga gerilya. No? Ang istorya is napo ka 6x6 truck ang gihatod, gipada sa mga Hapon para mo karga sa ilang mga patayng lawas. 900 ni kasundalo, I think, ang involved, 150 ba ang nakabalik sa headquarters. No? So, inana kadaghang patay. Muna nga, daghang patay na rin nga Hapon. No? Muna ay na mo katinga, maglakaw mo gabi, niya na maghinapon sa inyong luyo, Hapon na ang ipamatay sa atong mga kaliwat. Cut-on mo gamay Hapon, konnichiwa, bangwa, anak. Labi na gabi, may hong-hong ni mo pong bangwa, gipatay na sa inyong mga kaliwat, mga gerilya.
So, Dr. Jobers, our next question is, by the way, sa Raul Buzon says, maayong hapon from watching from the BLP commercial. We have ZR Carpio says, mabuhay from SDO Tapat. And also, there is already a question from JV Gabs. What happened to the Catholic priests during the war?
Walay mga misa sa panahon sa gubat. It was difficult. There was one priest nga gipapatay ni Fenton. No? Ikontrahan niya ang pare. Yang gipapatay. Si Fenton ang nagpapatay. There were priests, one of our priests sa SBD, nagpare sa mga gerilya sa Bohol, nasakpan in town sa mga Hapon, kay mupulaman, German to siya, no? Unya nag-American citizen during the war dito siya nintago sa Bohol. Kay SBD mission man ang Inabanga, ana diyang tanan sa Tagbilaran, nga nadakpan siya sa Gindulman pa or Inabanga. Ginasya diri sa Kempitay headquarters of the Visayas diya sa basement sa Cebu Normal School Administration Building. Ug nagdiarrhea siya niya, namatay siya. Ibisitahan siya sa German sad nga mga SBDs. Doon may nabilin sad nga pare nga German, nagmisa hinoon siya si Father Yashik, German man to siya. So what siya love this mga Hapon. We know of a few nga na magmisa, but most of the priests, there were many priests that joined the guerrillas that ministered to the guerrillas. We know for a fact that the cathedral had barely any masses. Even the basilica, Santo Niño had masses, but barely, especially around 1944. Dili naman sa yun makakita og kanang wine. No? Si Father Yashik, ang iyang gibuhat, for example, nagpalit siya, kuha siya mga pasas, niya iyang i-overnight, ihumol og tubig, mahimo ng murag bino pagkaugma ang pasas himno niya para misa, kay importante man sa misa. You cannot hold the mass kung walay host o walay wine, dry mass.
So, Dr. Jobers, before we give you the other questions from our online audience, we would also like you to describe to us Fenton, the very popular Fenton, and what was his role in the anti-Japanese war?
Si Fenton was a radio manager of KZRC, the radio station sa Cebu. Before pa sa gubat, sige na siya banat sa mga Hapon. Bisag nagtanang mga Hapon nga tindahan diya. Iyan ang igon, iyan ang banatan nga, mga espiya na, well, in English, pagbantay mo, ana. So when the war happened, when abot ang Hapon, kagiw din siya. Dito siya sa tabunan, no? At sila tanan sa Kasbukid, nag-evacuate. Eventually, they shared power pag-establish sa Cebu Guerrilla Force. They shared power with Cushing. Siya sa administrative side, si Cushing sa military side. But tunan din sila yung tension. Doon is like tension. Ang gibuhat aning Feinstein man yang Fenton yang gingangan later. Ang tanang member sa KZRC yang gipasaka sa bukid. Natago na radio transmitter, huwang og mga tubes o mga battery pack Eventually, ilang na set up. Ug nagradyo na sad siya. Sige, banat sa mga Hapon. Kunya si nataranta ng mga sundal, mga gerilya nga undanga og sungog ang mga Hapon. Kay the more ka mo sungog sa mga Hapon, the more na sila magpangita sa mga gerilya. The more ka pangitaon. Di gid kay Cebu. There were times nga mag-clash sila. Kunya at the time nga nag-recognize na sa kanang kining tanang mga gerilya sa Leyte, Negros, Mindanao, gusto nila ang kunon ang Cebu Guerrilla Command nga under nila. Dili mo sugot na si Fenton. Nag self-sufficiency ang Cebu at the time nga nanginanglag mga pagkaon. No? Nga, obviate resources, manginanglag biya tag paghumay sa panay niya pagpadaan nilang tao dito niingo man ang si Peralta. Tagaan mo na mo humay basta kay under mo na mo. Nga kining guerrilla sa World War II, kanya-kanya na sila independent, dili ganahan magpa-under kay ang support and resources gikan sa Australia ni MacArthur. Matunga man kung nga dugay mo makadawat si Colonel Fertig mauna, no? Sila sa Leyte. So, fiercely independent. Nag-away sila eventually ni Cushing. Labi nang si Cushing nakadawat sa iyang pagka-colonel, iyang promotion. Niya si Fenton, wala na yun mahatod ang iyang promotion. Dungan sa nag-promote. Kaya wala siya niya, nakalakaw na. Suko kay siya nga nakakita siya ni Cushing in Sudlon nga nanay rank nga. Ngayon na colonel man sad ka. No? Iyang igo sa buko-buko pa to si Cushing. So this Cushing taas kay pasensya. No? Until eventually doon sila physical separation kay katong gisulong na ang tabunan, nabuwag yun sila, and the physical separation made him even more fierce. Pamatyo niya ang tanang niyang mga kontra, tanan niyang gipangutangan sa wakas gubat, kaya gipamatay. Tanan niyang mga di ganahang mga tao. Unya, nabuang na to siya kayo niya. Mangita pa siya mga babae nga 14 ang edad, 15. Yang hadloko ng mga pamilya, nga iya pa mo silon. While he was in Asturias, bukid sa Asturias. No? So, nagkanam gito siya ka-weird to the point nga kasuhan gid siya sa guerrilla command sa Cebu Area Command. Execute against the orders of Cushing, who was in Negros at that time. Nagpatay ni Fenton.
So they were facing an enemy, and within the ranks, they also have problems.
The same with the 18 with the Katipuneros. Naamo ginay mga lahi sukwahi, mga lahi mga kinaiya. Nga lisod kay i-adjust. In every organization naamo gina. Bisan I think kini organization sa mga tour guides, naamo jud mo di masabtan. Di lang mo patay, di lang mo rape. Mara na diferensya. Because human man ta, natay weaknesses. The problem is how to temper those weaknesses para for the good of all. Fenton didn't care about that. Hindi ganahan. No? Dagagit siyang pamatay. Panlubong na diya sa bukid sa Asturias. Yung mga tao, yung ipatay. Dagan siya ipamatay. Mo to, ang ning witness against niya, iyar sa mga tao. Ang ning execute niya, ning carry out, si Pedro Lopez, iyahang tao.
So, Dr. Jober, we have two more questions prepared for you, but there are more questions from our audience. So we have a question from Ferdinand Pagao for the Apartisyo of DepEd Taguig City and Pateros.
Ay,
So
dali mga Tagalog. Ani.
yeah, so that's why we need you to translate to English
Okay.
so that or
Pwede naman ako
Tagalog.
mag-Tagalog.
So we have
Tagalog
audience
naman ako sa Maynila.
outside of the country, and also we have audience from
Ay,
from
ipagpawag
Samar,
ko.
we have
Ipagpamanhin
Waray,
ko, hindi ko alam.
and we have also from Luzon.
Ipagpatawad mo kami. Tawarin mo.
So the question from this is the supervisor of DepEd Taguig City and Pateros. So were there Cebu women victimized as comfort women?
Yes.
And who were the valiant women in the war in Cebu against Japan?
There were women who were made into comfort women here. We know where the comfort stations are. They're identified in a map at the Diet Library archives in Japan. So we know where the comfort stations were. Part man guna sa Japanese culture o sa ilang samurai culture nga. Lingawon yun ang mga sundalo, baluyan na niya. But they extended this kind of practice to a culture nga walay inana. So makakita kag advertisement sa Visayan Shimbun, there's a Visayan Shimbun, Doon na yung mga advertisement sa una nga, mag-recruit og mga dancers or singers nga babae. Nga na location, mauna ang comfort station. So some were recruited, some were forced. I met one in the south, who in my Kabilin TV episode, remember I had a heritage TV show in 1910, 1910, 2010, 2009. She was about to be interviewed, and then we asked for permission from the family, and the family declined. So I know that there was one in somewhere in the south. She was about 86 years old when we met her. She told me everything that happened to her. She was brought to the city. She was put in a. She thought she was going to be a waitress, but it turned out to be a comfort station. So at one time, she would she said she was 16 years old. She would have 3 or 4 Japanese soldiers with her at night, puli-puli, one by one, and they would not be paid. There's a lot of experience in that. Now there were also women guerrillas. No? What was the work done by women? There's Rosario Nasaling Estrada, who was a graduate of UP School of Pharmacy at UP, no, UST School of Pharmacy. Um, and she was caught by the guerrillas in Alegria, and the Japanese. They were looking for medicines in the pre-war period that she stored. She had a pharmacy, and fortunately, her brother or her husband was able to remove the pharmacy, the medicines. So because of that harrowing experience with the Japanese garrison in Barile at the Barile Elementary School, which was just behind her house or in front of her house, the back was in front of her house. She decided to join the medical corps of the guerrillas, and there were many doctors that were medics of the Cebu Area Command. There were also nurses. Now, the main bulk of the women were provided food. They were cooking, they were sewing. No? The guerrillas did not plant, did not cook, did not repair their clothes. They would not have, and Colonel Segura recognizes this, that without these civilians who were never recognized by the United States as combatants, so they never received any single American dollar. There were about 35,000 of them, volunteer guards, compared to about 17,000 or 20,000 Cebu Area Command enlisted guerrillas. About 35,000 were volunteer guards. They were never recognized. They were underage. They delivered food. They cooked food. They prepared everything for the guerrillas. The United States never recognized them as members of the United States Army Forces in the Far East. And the story is all over the Philippines. They were never recognized. I met some of these volunteer guards. They were already old, but they were 13 years old at the time. Men, boys, and girls. Some of them carried letters between the guerrilla headquarters and another guerrilla command. They were very dangerous work, but they were never recognized. And many of them didn't like to be recognized. They just did it because it was exciting. At 13 years of age, it's exciting to go from one place to place doing a secret work. So many of them never really claimed reparations or payment, but a lot of them suffered, were tortured, were caught, were arrested, but never received compensation from the United States Army Forces in the Far East or from the Philippine Army afterwards because they were not recognized. They were not enlisted in the Cebu Area Command. And so many after the war enlisted themselves in the Cebu Area Command, according to one American, when his father was asked why he did not ask for recognition. He was an officer, si Tam Eureka, no, ang iyang anak, ng Anhe, because he said so many people who were never in the war were just in the city suddenly became guerrillas and Cebu Area Command members after the war. So most of the problema. Daghan sang ning take advantage after the war, guerrilla kunuhay sila. Bisag nagtago lang sila sa ilawom sa kaba. They were just hiding under the table of their houses while the war was going on. And there are always people in this country and anywhere who will take advantage of the situation. That's sad. I
Yeah,
think so.
Dr. Jobbers, there was actually a comment when we posted this event. There was a comment telling us about his ancestor, his grandfather, who was a courier and a messenger or a messenger during the war, but never recognized. So
Yeah.
part of the story that you just told us. So there are other questions from the online audience, still from Ferdinand Pagao. It's okay. He said it's okay that you spoke in in Cebuano because they are learning the language. And then he is asking if there were also anting-anting used by the guerrillas, by the Cebuano guerrillas or in the guerrillas all over the country against the Japanese.
I think so. Because even until today, Cebuanos still wear habak. How many of you here are wearing a habak right now? You all wear that. And some of you use the scapular as if it were a habak. I know many, I'm an anthropologist, I know many families, when their children are born, a young infant, they already let them wear a scapular as if it is an anting-anting. So the connection of folk Catholicism and anting-anting and defense and survival has always been there. No? Even in the Spanish revolts, the small rebellions, the revolts that happened in between the Katipunan Revolution, there were anting-anting. So it would be safe to imagine that there would be anti-antis. In fact, many of these guerrillas, they had this red band, mga pulahan. They were there also. And you still have pulahan. In Talamban today, it's an organization. This is a famous, the ones you find in Tondo, in Quiapo, this group, Bakal something, they also have it here, even until today. They still wear their upper aprons with pidgin Latin, proktumpuk, tumpuk, lumpuk, from all kinds of kong, tokorum, tom, all kinds of things. And then, because it's a way to, as you know, it emboldens you. It makes you bold when you think that you have protection, rather than you're not protected.
Yes. In our previous discussion also about the magic in the revolution, when I asked also a professor from the University of San Carlos Department of History, Dr. George Bernag, I asked him, can you tell us, please tell us factors in the victory of the Cebuanos or parts of the Visayas against Spain? And then he mentioned one, the belief in the anting-anting. So he said that the belief in the anting-anting was one factor that made the warriors or the revolutionaries, the belief in the anting-anting was one of the factors why the revolutionaries became so brave in fighting against the foreign colonizers. So, of course, in pre-colonial times, everything that the pre-colonial Visayans wore were anting-anting. The jewelry,
The tattoo.
the tattoo, they were anting-anting. The clothes, they all have meanings. So, another question, Dr. Jobbers. I guess I would ask this after the rest of the questions. So there is our question for you. What are the important two remaining questions for Dr. Jobers from me? And the rest would be open forum from the online audience and the on-site audience. So you would like to ask you regarding the important sites in Cebu related to the war against the Japanese occupation. This is a question that we made especially for the tour guide so that when they would go around Cebu, and then they would have a knowledge of if this area or if this site has a relationship with the war or this figure in the war against Japan.
The most important sites in Cebu would be Marco Polo Plaza. There you find a canon, a Japanese goddess of mercy. So many Japanese died there, maybe more than 1,000 were bombed there while they resisted. Because the Japanese resistance, the Japanese did not, unlike Manila, Cebu was already devastated at the start of the war because na-burn out na siya. So na-burn na siya. So the Japanese decided that the mountains, the babag, the ridge behind the city would be a final stand and then they would withdraw to the north, following the Cordillera of Cebu, the mountain range. So for 30, 40, for no, not 16 days, the Japanese were held at Marco Polo, Kanang, all those places where you have all those cafes that are very expensive and all those hotels. They're all battle sites. All those where you do zip lines, everything leading to Tabunan, those are all battle sites. There are tunnels there, there are caves there where the Japanese stayed for 16 to 20 days fighting every day, every hour, looking for food. That's where Governor Layson, Paulino Gullias, all lost their lives, no? Because they were hit by a bomb from the Americans. And it so happens that the interpreter, Japanese interpreter who could read China, the Chinese papa, lolo, uncle ni Gerilya was there with them. He went out of the tunnel to to look for food. Kay gikapoy, they were tired of eating food with Kikoman. No, Governor Layson and Paulino Gullias were complaining, grabe kaparat, Japanese food is so salty. Because they're all sweating. The Japanese sweating is very hot. So they lean around salt. And then there's the other battle site is IT Park. The 2 days ang battle for Lahog Airfield. IT Park is a battle site. Waterfront Hotel is a battle site. No? That's where the tanks were bombarding the Japanese hold at PC Hills. PC Hills is also a battle site. The Japanese were firing down on Lahog from PC Hills. So you can imagine, no, there are many tunnels there. Buhisan is also a battle site. No, where the guerrillas defended Buhisan because the Japanese could poison the water. You just pour cyanide, 1 can of cyanide will kill the entire Cebu city. Anyone drinking. So they had to defend. And there was a battle there that ensued for 3 days. No? So you have a lot of these sites. And of course, Talisay is the landing site. No? And the famous battle that really killed an entire company of the United States American Division is the Battle of Gochan Hill or Wat Hill behind Ecotec, which is where the Gochan family lives. Behind them is a hill that looks down at Ecotec. That's a famous site where the Japanese detonated bombs on a tunnel while the American Company B of, I forgot the regiment, the American Division, were climbing up. Even the tanks that were climbing up, they all exploded because of the bombs. That so many bombs were under the tunnel. And the Gochan family has offered to make this a shrine of sorts. No, the tunnel is still there. They've offered that a marker be put there so that people can remember Gochan Hill. No? So Ecotec, Sudlon, where DepEd, Ombudsman, all of those, that's a battle site. Beverly Hills is a battle site. No, also Babag. There used to be a marker at Babag, and then all these young people that removed all the metal parts. So all you see is a marble plinth. The words are all gone because that's what young people do when they don't know history. It's very sad. No, but the Battle of Babag. Now, the Battle of Gilagila is well marked. When Richie Wagas was mayor, he put a marker there, a monument in honor of the Battle of Gilagila. But so many other battles are not recognized and marked.
Dahil salamat, Dr. Jober. So, our last question for you, but there are more questions from the audience. So, how were the Japanese forces defeated in Cebu?
Well, they were defeated first, like a guerrilla, according to the literature. A guerrilla is like a flea, no, on a dog. You strike here, the dog kicks, you move around. So the guerrillas actually prepared for eventual liberation landings by the American Division. So what defeated the Japanese eventually, of course, was the sheer force of the American liberation coming in from MacArthur via Australia, and the Seventh Fleet coming in, moving from Midway eventually to the Philippine Sea, and then the Battle of Leyte Gulf. And then eventually moved to the Visayas, no, Operation Victor 2. That's what defeated the Japanese. But the Japanese, when the Japanese landed at Talisay on March 26, remember, they only surrendered on August 28. So between March, April, May, June, July, August, for 5 months, the Japanese continued fighting even if they had no more food, no more water. Why? Because there was an imperial rescript. The imperial rescript was so powerful to the Japanese. The emperor is the king, and you're supposed to die for the emperor and never surrender. So all of them, even if they had nothing to eat, they all marched on the ridges of Cebu. There were nurses that were, in fact, the picture you have of nurses in the archives, in the United States archives, there, it's not downloadable. They're not, they're not nurses. In our research, they were comfort women from Palau. Some of them were also Japanese. In the Japanese retreat to the north, they killed so many of their children. There's a war crimes case in Japan against the Japanese colonel and an admiral who ordered the massacre of Japanese children as they withdraw. Somewhere in Carmen and in Liloan, there are Japanese children there who were massacred, who were killed by their own forces on the pretext that it was so noisy. The children were very noisy. They kept on crying because there was only one meal per day. Lugaw, onigiri, no, bowl of rice with salt inside, or plum or pickles. That's it. That's your only food. So children were crying, and so they were ordered to be massacred. But the parents were not told that they would be massacred. The Japanese women, mothers, were told to gather your children somewhere for exercise, for something, but they were massacred. So there's a war crimes case that was filed in Japan against Japanese Navy commanders who killed their own children up there in Liloan, in Carmen, and I think somewhere in Sogod. There were even mestizo Japanese children who were killed. One was 22 years old. Babae, 22 na. The order was to massacre Japanese children 13 and below, to kill them. But even mga mestiza, children of Japanese and Filipina mothers, were killed in up there in Sogod. No? So the Japanese actually suffered between March 26 and the surrender on August 28. They would be killed every time they would be in the ridge. Only there would be farmers seeing them. They would be killed instead of being given food. No? Because we went through 3 years of brutal occupation. So it was time to avenge what's happened. So it's understandable why many of the farmers in the mountains killed a lot of Japanese.
Daghang salamat, Dr. Jobber. So we have more questions from our online audience, and then for our on-site audience, we would also the floor is also open for your questions. Do we prepare the microphone, and stay tuned for the trivia quiz with prizes. This time we have 4 questions because our tour guides organization is also giving additional special prizes for those who would answer, and we would ask Dr. Jobbers to be the judge of the answers if the questions would be answered correctly or not. So there is a question from Ryle J. Grate. So this should be Grate, not great. Good day, Dr. Jobbers. Were there Cebuanos labeled as Japanese collaborators?
Oh, yeah.
What happened to them after the war?
There were many. There were Bureau of Constabulary people who used to be part of the USAFE who joined the Japanese. There are famous names, Kokofate Adlawan, for example, of Minglanilla. There was the Rivera, someone named Rivera. There were so many collaborators. What happened to them after the war? They were kicked. There was a war crimes people's tribunal at the capital. Every time they would be brought from the provincial jail, which is Museo Sugbo today, they would be brought to the capital. While they were being marched in shackles, people would kick them and box them and throw things at them. Even the American soldiers guarding them would be hit by bottles, and all kinds of things thrown at them. No? They complained to the judge that they were being harassed. But they did the harassment for 3 years. So they suffered so much. Many of the collaborators, especially the military collaborators who were headquartered with the Kampetay, they suffered so much after the war. Now, they were pardoned in 1956. Quirino was very magnanimous. Remember, President Quirino, his wife and his children were all killed by the Japanese at their house in Ilocos, I think. So instead, he was the president who was best suited to forgive the Japanese because he himself personally suffered from the Japanese. His wife and his children were all bayoneted, no, while he was away. No, only one or two children survived, I think. So he was well positioned as president to forgive the Japanese. So in 1956, he granted all the Japanese who were imprisoned at the Bilibid to be brought to Japan at the Sugamo prison to continue their imprisonment there. Many of them were eventually released in the 1970s. No?
Okay. Dr. Jobers, may you tell us again regarding how many Japanese surrendered in Cebu? And that's in August. That's on August 28, 1945.
The surrender on August 28 happened in Kaduawan. That was the largest number, maybe about 3,000 to 4,000.
10,000.
But even before that, there were surrenders. Surrender in Carmen, August 23. Surrender in Sogod, August 27. The surrender in Medellin, August 28 at 26. So there were many surrenders going on.
Within
So if you
August.
count all the surrenders up to August 28, the total is 9,990 or 975. So almost 10,000 surrendered. Which
Okay.
is why I'm going to surrender now and eat.
So,
Just been given food.
Dr. Jobers, there is also a question here regarding from Joey Orlando. Joey, I don't know from where are you, but then he asks you regarding the stories. Please share stories about the Japanese strugglers in post-war
Oh, yeah.
Cebu.
The spirit is strong, but the flesh is weak. There were strugglers. In fact, as of 1947, newspapers were reporting that there were Japanese who would shoot at farmers in the caves of Sogod. No, there were many Japanese. The South was liberated fast. On March 26, before March 26, the Japanese already prepared for the defense of Babag. So they withdrew by January or February. They withdrew from the South. So the South effectively was free by February. All the garrisons were abandoned in the South. It was the North that suffered, especially Bogo. And there were stragglers in Bogo. There were people there there were Japanese there who still continued the war because they did not know what happened. No? So the Japanese ambassador usually would come. Not ambassador. We did not have an ambassador yet at that time. Japanese officials from Japan would come here, bringing their company commander or their platoon leader to convince the stragglers in the mountains to come down. Kaya ilangan ng officer. It's their officer. So the officer would command them to surrender because the war is over. Of course, the longest struggler was Onoda, who surrendered in Mindoro in 1974. No, he was brought to Malacanang. And he wrote a book about his life in Mindoro, fighting for 30 years after the war. No? That's how the Japanese think of battles. That when the emperor orders you to go to war, go to war. Die for the emperor. That's how fanatic they were. We don't have that kind of fanaticism, thankfully. But if you could revert that fanaticism to science and technology, well, that's what you see in the Japanese today. Perfection, they commit suicide when they do not pass the entrance exam to the universities. That's how committed they are.
And also, if they're accused of corruption.
Yeah, they're very dangerous. It's very dangerous, but it can also help develop your country. But it can also be very dangerous.
So while Dr. Jobers is
Eating.
enjoying his tablia cupcake, I would like to read some comments from our audience. So we have Ferdinand Pagao from DepEd Taguig City and Patero saying, "Daghang salamat, Dr. Jobbers, and mabuhay po kayo." And our author of the Leon Kilat book, Emil Hustimbaste, says, "Hello, Jobbers, and he is keenly listening. Nindot inyong istorya." And then we have also JV Cabs who has this comment. Cebuanos are escrimadores. Maybe this triggered them to become guerrillas because they know how to fight and defend themselves. So there is a question here after that. And then there is also a question regarding um, I will ask this question later. But I would also like to show you this book. Do you know these books? The War in Cebu is available at Palmgrass de Cebu Heritage Hotel, Basahanan, and also Tabunan. This is also a bestseller book, but this is available at our Basahanan. And also, we have this book also edited. Grabe ni si Dr. Jobbers ha, is already in Leyte, but he is still edited this book, Hidden in Leyte, about an American who hid in Leyte because of the war. Co-edited also by another Suki historian, Dr. Rolando Borinaga. So this is the Orville Babcock Diary of the World War II from
The
1941
first,
to
the first
1945.
20 pages actually is about Cebu. He was here before
Please show
April
Dr.
10.
Jobbers.
Yeah.
Ano putol? Naputol.
Okay na, I'm still on air.
Yes. So the next question, even if you can't see Dr. Jobbers, he's still here. They are still adjusting the camera. So the next question is regarding the Escrimador. If the knowledge of the Cebuano in Escrima is it one of the reasons that they formed the guerrilla movement against the Japanese?
No, I don't think so. You don't have to be an escrimador to defend your land. Besides, you're against bullets. No, much as we appreciate escrimador, it's no match for bullets. I think it's ingrained in every society that when you are invaded by the enemy, you should resist and struggle. Every society does that. Look at Ukraine being invaded by Russia. You don't need to be an escrimador in Ukraine to fight against Russia. This is outright invasion. This is outright occupying what you rightfully own. No, so while eskrima is part of Cebuano culture, unfortunately, it's not a match for bullets. No? And World War II was the most high tech at the time. The, all the weapons of war uh, were, were were unleashed, weapons that were never seen before. So it's not a match. For me, it's ingrained in all of us to defend our territory, even in your property. When you have a neighbor who will throw garbage in your house, you will fight with your neighbor. You will not say, "Sige neighbor, go ahead, keep on throwing garbage in my house." It is ingrained in the human species, even in animals, to defend territory. So, so it was natural for us to fight against someone that's invading and going to change our life.
Daghang salamat, Dr. Jobber. So the next question is from regarding, still from Ferdinand Pagao, regarding if there were serious attempts by the Japanese government for atonement and reparation for war atrocities in the country, and Cebu in particular.
You know, I was at I was at Yushukan last week at the Japanese Imperial War Museum in Tokyo, and beside that is the controversial Yasukuni Shrine. I, I took a picture of the shrine. I did not post it. Somebody told me, you go to the shrine, it's beside it. I said, I was there, but I will not post. It's a very sensitive shrine. All the militarists who started the war, all the generals, including Masaharu Humma, also Prime Minister Tojo, they're all enshrined there as gods. And so every time a Japanese Prime Minister goes to Yasukuni to bow during the Obon festival, during the Festival of the Dead in August, China, uh, China especially, and Korea, they always protest because it's painful for us, to see the Japanese not realizing that these are the generals that brought Japan to war. That's why you have a very strong pacifist movement in Japan. But the Japanese actually paid reparations to us. To the Koreans demanded capital intensive industries. Look at Korea today. They have all kinds of factories. What did the Philippine government demand? 7 ships, not factories. This is the sad part of Philippine war reparations. We did not demand for factories or capital intensive industries to be built by the Japanese. We would be making ships already now, making cell phones. No, the Philippine government under Rojas demanded 7 ships. They're called President Garcia, all these president
Boats.
lines.
The boats.
And payment for all the buildings that were destroyed. The United States paid for that. But we never asked the Japanese to build factories. The Koreans did that. Look at Korea today. And that's why it's so painful for us that we were destroyed by the Japanese, and they paid. But what did we do? We demanded mining rights. Atlas Mining, for example, is a product of war reparations. Mitsubishi Metals was required to buy copper from Atlas Mining and bring it to Japan. Atlas did not demand from the Japanese to build a mining industry, to build all the concentrators. We did not demand for factories. This is the sad part of Philippine government. No, when we would have been a very rich country already, today we're still buying Japanese ships. If we demanded for reparation for the Japanese to build shipbuilding industries here, we would be using our own ships. Until now, we still buy ships second hand. That's why it angers me when we talk of reparations. We suffered, we were raped, we were killed, and what did our Philippine government under Rojas do? Ask for money to build bridges, to build roads. Roads to go where? No factories to build rice mills. No factories to build ships. No factories to do industries. Nothing. And look at the Japanese. Within 10 years, they rose to become a superpower. We could have risen together with them if we only demanded the Japanese, whatever you build there, you also build here as part of reparations. We did not. And so today, even our cell phone comes from Korea. My cell phone comes from Korea. We should stop thinking only of the physical appearances of things, of buildings, how they look like. We need capital intensive industries, factories for our OFWs to come back to work. It's not happening. So I get emotional when we talk of reparations because it really angers me why my grandparents, all those politicians, demanded ships, barco, instead of a shipbuilding facility. We asked for a finished ship, not the factory to make the ship.
Dr. Jobers, there is a follow-up question to that. And regarding the Roppongi property,
In
is it
Tokyo,
Roppongi property as reparation? Is there an update regarding that?
the Roppongi property, the Kudan, and the Roppongi property, the Roppongi property is now part of the Philippine government. It's the Philippine government that wanted to sell it, actually, but it was declared a heritage, a historical market. It has a historical market, it cannot be sold. It's very expensive, Roppongi. Those of you who have been to Tokyo, Roppongi is a very expensive neighborhood. Our embassy is there. It's in the most conservative part of Tokyo. That's very near Yasukuni Shrine. And the Japanese gave it to us, man. The Japanese sold the Kudan in 1943 to Laurel, and we still have it. It's in the most conservative part of Japan, where the Liberal Democratic Party of Abe, the late Prime Minister Abe, would live. Prime Minister Abe, by the way, there was never a formal forgiveness or apology. The Japanese are always afraid of a formal apology that's delivered in a speech in front of Congress, for example, because that would mean that they accept responsibility and that they should pay some more. So if the Prime Minister, they will always say, we are paid that the Pacific War happened, that we had to do this, we had to do that. But they never say, we we brutalized Southeast Asia. I have many friends in Japan. In fact, I'm supposed to start a visiting professorship in Japan. But history has to be recognized as it is, and this is what happened. No? But you cannot expect the Japanese to do that. It would flood so many demands from the Philippines. We would then demand for a cell phone factory, a shipbuilding factory, so that we will stop buying ships. Well, we already have a shipbuilding factory in the Aboitiz, Tsuneshi. But it had to be a partnership with the Japanese. Libre, it would have been libre in 1950s if we just demanded that. But now it's partnership with Tsuneshi. Tsuneshi. Yeah.
So there are many questions at online, but we want already to give a chance to the on-site audience to give their questions. Please introduce your name and then make your question short, like less than a minute.
Oh, by the
So-
way, before you go with that, we are a very forgiving culture. Do you know that when Prince Akihito came here, very young prince, 1950s, I think he came here, they were all afraid. The Japanese were all afraid after the signing of the peace treaty in
Sure.
1956. They were all afraid that the Filipinos would still remember the war. It's just 9 years, 11 years after the war. You know what happened? Wherever Prince Akihito and his wife came, Filipinos were carrying the Japanese flag. They were clapping. We are a very forgiving culture. We were so happy to see. I mean, that's good. That's why we're surviving despite the difficulties. We're having a hard time in our economy, but we're surviving because emotionally we are used. We have a lot of emotional weapons compared to the Japanese. We can forgive easily, but we do not forget.
we easily forget and forgive.
No, we do not forget.
Forgive and forget.
Well,
And then, unlike the Koreans, right? If the,
the
Kore-
Koreans are really.
are so angry with the Japanese until
The
now.
Chinese also. Well, the
Yes.
Chinese also, they.
Yes, and if they are mistaken to be Japanese, like when you tell a Korean, "Are you Japanese?" The Korean would be so angry.
Well, because Korea was controlled for 40 years it was a colony of Japan. They were a colony since 1910. They were colonized by the Japanese. That's why there's a large Korean population in Japan. Yes, you cannot colonize
so can
without
someone,
invading.
if you want to interact, please raise your hand and please go to the microphone and introduce yourself. So, is there someone who would like? So the one in red, in white, in red lang sa first.
Maroon.
Maroon na? Is it maroon or red? No, the one at the back.
Oh. Maroon na lang.
Wala ko
Nintindog naman.
kakita, manggod.
Siya lang, nintindog naman.
Sige na lang. Sige na lang. Si maroon guy. Sige. Please introduce your name and
hapon,
from
Doc
what
Jovers.
organization.
Ako si Dodong Milan, taga Italy. Bitaw, joke lang.
Prego.
Doc Jovers, kanang, doon na lang ko yung gamayng kuwanin mo kanang pangutan. Bahin bitaw sa significance sa Koga Papers nga
Oh, yeah.
na-shorten ang atong wars because of Koga Papers. Wala mo guna siya ma-acknowledge, ma-recognize sa atong Philippine government nga importante kailan sa atong history sa Cebu about
Yeah.
the guerrilla war.
There's
Thank you.
there's so many things in Cebu that are not recognized. In fact, in the war, all the events happen in Bataan, in Corregidor, and in Leyte. There are no celebrations except the one sa Talisay by Cebuanos. But the Koga incident, also called Otsu in the Japanese, is when two Kawanishi uh, flying boats crashed. They were lost in a storm. And one of the ships, flying boats, carried important papers made by the commander of the combined Japanese fleet, Commander Mineichi Koga. His plane crashed. He did not bring the document with him. He memorized the whole show plan. He had his Vice Admiral Shigeru Kudome carry the document. And as it happens, the airplane crashed somewhere in Sangat, San Fernando, and it floated to Valladolid, Karkar. There's no marker there. But it changed the war because eventually the papers were brought to the headquarters of Tabunan and brought to Australia and translated. The originals brought back to Tabunan and brought back to the site. It was floated back within a period of 2 months. It's a very important operation. No? It was such a the original documents were not just brought to Australia, they were brought back and refloated right on the spot where the plane crashed, so that the Japanese would never realize that the show plan, the final defense plan for the defense of the Philippines leading to the home islands, would not be discovered by the Americans. The Koga documents, show plan, was that the landing would happen in Davao or Sarangani in December. When they saw that, MacArthur moved the landing to Leyte. But kani si MacArthur is a media-savvy megalomaniac. If you read his books, they're all propaganda. If he was that good as a general, why were we defeated in just 3 months by the Japanese? So people should put MacArthur in his proper place. So many people praise him for all that he did. No, the Leyte landing would not have happened. The advanced forces, the knowledge of all the combined Japanese fleet, how many boats they had left, how many ships, destroyers, how many airplanes, would not have been known if not for the discovery of the show plan. But in all the biographies, autobiography, reports of MacArthur, even at the MacArthur Museum, there is not a single mention of the show plan. Why? Because it would show that pure luck saved MacArthur from a long battle in the Philippines. Remember, the Chester Nimitz did not like the liberation of the Philippines first. You have to grant that from MacArthur. Kaya hambugiro man to siya, when he left, I shall return. So he made that promise and he wished to fulfill that promise. Chester Nimitz and the Joint Chiefs of Staff said, let's skip the Philippines. Let's go directly to Okinawa and go to battle in Japan. Why do we need to liberate the Philippines? All we need to do is end the war by attacking Tokyo. MacArthur said, no, I promise I will return to the Philippines. We must divert the fleet to the Philippines and prolong the war further. Na-convince si Chester Nimitz. But he had no idea how the Japanese were preparing for defense. And then the Koga papers luckily arrived at his desk. Pure luck. He does not recognize that in his book. It's not even in the footnote. There is only the official report of the Suez Pact that mentions in 3 pages this event. They did not even mention what the documents were, what was it called. It's just that these documents were discovered and they were carried by the guerrillas by submarine in Negros, which eventually reached Darwin, Australia. They were immediately translated. Chester Nimitz had a copy. He saw the copy was badly translated. He asked for the original copies, brought them back to Hawaii, had his own translators, retranslated, and they had a complete picture of how many destroyers, how many defense facilities the Japanese had. They knew where to attack. They knew the battle order. They knew the order of battles, who were the generals, how many admirals were left. And then, you know what defeated eventually the Japanese? The imperial rescript. That an admiral at the middle of a defeat has to commit suicide. It is your officer. Why should your officers die in battle? You should save your officers. They're the ones who will think about the war. The Japanese command responsibility, maghikog ang admiral. So they lost so many officers on harakiri alone. And who replaced them? Junior officers who suddenly became admiral at the age of 30, 32, no experience, because all the admirals, all the generals committed harakiri. That's not a good military strategy. Do not commit harakiri just because your soldiers are all dead. Go to the headquarters and plan again. Sa Japanese, they all committed, well, most of them committed harakiri. So they lost the officer corps who were trained in the Imperial War College. That's the main reason also why the Japanese had only Minichi Koga. Who was Koga? Do you know who Koga was? He was out of nowhere. He was picked because Yamamoto, the admiral, had been killed by the Japanese by the Americans while flying to Saipan. They had no one to replace. Everybody was killing themselves. Nagharakiri every time a defeat. So they found someone like Koga, who was a brilliant admiral, by the way. No?
Daghang
But
salamat, Dr. Jobbers. So, there are so many questions online, but how many minutes do we have?
no
And
more.
we will be until 5. It's all. Is it okay?
Okay.
Ah.
Sige.
So there is a question from online, but the person asking is on site. So this is from Al Quizon, the president of the tour guides organization Flag. So early on October 21, 1944, the Kamikaze Special Attack Corps made its debut from the Cebu's Lahog Airport. Does it mean that the Kamikaze was first organized in Cebu?
No, the kamikaze was organized in Pampanga by General Onishi. But he requested for airplanes from Lahog. So some of the airplanes went to Pampanga. So the first kamikaze attacks came out of Pampanga. But many of the planes came from Lahog. So should a marker be put there by the Japanese that the kamikaze officers, flying aces, 18 years old, 20 years old, kaya magharakiri lagi ang mga tiguang. So nabilin, 18 years old, 20 years old. They came from IT Park, where there is IT Park now. There were airplanes brought early dawn to go to Pampanga for the ceremony for facing the divine wind, no, with sake. And they all flew and started diving in Leyte. And then eventually Lahog itself had its own share of kamikaze pilots who went directly to the following day, mantingali, they went directly to Leyte. In Pampanga at Clark, there is a marker of the kamikaze. In Lahog, in IT Park, there's not even a marker that it used to be an airport or that it used to be a military airfield or that it used to be occupied by the Japanese or that the kamikaze started there. So it's up to the Ayala owners to put up a marker.
Dr. Jobbers, there is another question online from Joey Orlando. Speaking of books, are there titles or accounts of the Japanese perspective of the war in Cebu?
Yes, there is an online library called Carl. I forgot the name. It's an online library. You can download all the artist reports, the translated reports of Japanese interviews of Japanese officers who were arrested and were debriefed by Japanese-speaking Americans. There is voluminous documents of the Japanese defense in Cebu. I'm writing about it uh, during when I will be spending 9 months. This is funny, no? I'm very angry at the Japanese, but I will be spending 9 months at a university in Japan for a professorship.
It's an
It's
objective.
a different generation, but I will remind them constantly of what happened.
So JB Gabs online also has this comment. There are rumors that Cebuanos have some mystical powers garnered from Oracion and that they were vulnerable against bullets and blades. And
Yeah.
even now, there are some secret groups and societies
Yeah.
that are still practicing these arts and system.
Yes.
So, this is a comment from JV. And also from Ryle J. Grate. After the war, there were rumors and talks of Japanese treasures where, which somehow ignited the interest of Cebuano treasure hunters. Is
Yes.
there is there any documentation that would prove the matter, or or were those simply rumors?
This is the so-called Yamashita treasure. Filipinos call it Yamashita. If you're Japanese, you'd say Yamashita. So it's Yamashita treasure. It's named after General Tomoiki Yamashita, the last commander of the Imperial Japanese forces in the Philippines. Most of them, the sites are, there are supposed to be 300 plus sites. And maybe in Cebu, but I've never seen anyone. I've never seen a gold bar. I've seen two fake gold bars. The business is in the fake map and in the fake gold bars. So if you want to get rich, make fake maps. Sell it at 50,000. There will be 10 or 20 buyers. And then leave the place. Never come back. You will be killed for doing
Oh,
that.
good.
So make the maps, study Japanese kanji, katakana, or just copy the Japanese, the kanji name, katakana, and hiragana name of Ajinomoto. Write it there, no? And Mitsubishi and Nissan, and then put an X mark and little cross, and then sell it. Use an old paper. There are many old papers in churches called baptismal documents. No, do not steal them. But you can buy old documents, and then they can be removed, and then you use an old ink. Sell it for 50,000 to 20 people. That's 1 million. Then move to another province, another 1 million. This is the business. Give me someone who has gotten rich out of treasure hunting. You know, every time they treasure hunt, they will say, we will leave now because we already found the treasure. Then when you go to their house, no money. I know someone in Bohol who went into treasure hunting, sold the hotel, sold the gasoline station, sold the store, now begs around. So go ahead. Be fooled by these maps. Or, if I were you, be the one fooling. There's so many people who want to, in this country, there are so many people who want to be fooled. So, make those maps. Make a business out of them. That's the only way to stop all of this.
Thank you,
Bula-bala.
Dr. Jobbers. One more question or two more questions from the on-site audience. The one in glasses, he was actually asking a question a while ago. So please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, guys. I'm Raymond Pross. I'm a Japanese-speaking tour guide. I belong to the CATG, Cebu Association of Tour Guide. Doon ako'y pangutana regarding anang tabunan. I was so intrigued kay presently naamang ko kayo nagpuyo sa tabunan pag-start sa pandemic. So dito sa sa
Please
tabunan,
adjust the camera.
dito sa tabunan, doon na sila gitawag og batalyon. So daghan kayong mga treasure hunters karon dito nga kuan. Foreigners. Yeah, sumpayan ako tong emo doctor nga kinini ang mga foreigners, they have their equipments, detectors, kay naalagay ko na kuan dito. Unsa ba ka-importante gyud ang tabunan during the war in Cebu?
Tabunan was the
Thank you.
headquarters of the guerrillas. It was attacked twice. It was abandoned twice. But it's the headquarters of the guerrillas. So why would the Japanese bury their treasures there? Well, maybe because of the 20 days that they were being bombed. So March 26, the Japanese already went to Busay, Babag, Tabunan, everywhere. Every day, for 8 hours, they were bombed by the Americans. Can you still plant your gold bar while being bombed constantly? 200 airplanes every day, puli-puli from Mactan and Leyte, bombing you. And then you have the temerity to find a place to bury your gold bars? So the business is in the maps. Good luck to all of you. Also, there is a permit required for treasure hunting. If you have no permit, it's illegal. If you have a permit, I wish you all the luck. Finding the treasure is like winning the lotto. Today, the lotto is 358 million. You better bet on the lotto, not on treasure hunting. I'll join you later. Hey, I have to go to the lotto.
One last question from the on-site audience. Sige. Another tour guide for the Japanese.
Hello po, I'm Bongbong, also from Flag. Frequent ko nga Palmgrass seminar ko ba attend this. Then how I'd wish before nga sana about Japanese na sa ang topic kay kada ari na ko ang topic gugma-gugma, anting-anting, yon kilat kanang so I was one nga nag-request nga sana naa sa Japanese unta nga topic. So karon pa lang pasalamat mi at least nga naa nag Japanese topic. Then I think more than half sa tour guides nga ni join karon are all Japanese speaking tour guides like me.
Konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa. Yours ko na nga siya. So, whatever na mo makatunan dire, take note, amo pa nang i-interpret to Japanese language. So, manang kung pwede makahangyo mi ang ako makauban matagaan pa tag more time to ask question compared sa online. Kung pwede, hangyo
Sige,
lang din.
sige.
I have a book coming out. It's called The Japanese Community in Cebu Before and During the War. It's almost finished. 1 week na lang. We're printing it probably by next
Sige,
week.
sir.
And,
Interesting.
my
One week.
My collaborator is Sensei from Tokyo University.
Wow.
Tokyo University is the premier university of Japan.
Interested.
So we're going to publish, it's a 10 volume, but we've worked with the Diet Library in Japan and here also.
Okay, mine.
So you just buy a copy. Barato naman ang mga 200, 300 pesos.
Sige, kay gusto
If it
mo mapunan ang among knowledge about Japanese in Cebu. So, ang first na kung i-inquire mo na, please, can you expound or explain more about Japanese in Fort San Pedro? Pangalawa, mas una ko'y time to ask, amoy try og interpret ang guerrilla. Pero, saka, bago na mo interpret, unsa man ning guerrilla? Is it in compare sa Manila or counterpart sa Hook Balahaf? Then, unsa in English guerrilla?
Guerrilla.
Guerrilla.
Japanese is guerrilla.
Kaysa Google, piting taas sa explanation. Bago na mo interpret, kailain man ang interpretation sa civilian soldiers o government troops, lain sa ng rebel soldiers, lain sa ng rebel CPP NPA. So, bago mo interpret, unsay guerrilla, kailain og meaning, especially sa kanang Japanese na nga interpretation.
It's an irregular military force. Irregular.
Military force.
Yes.
Military building as in
It's usually to resist a larger force that's invading. So ang guerrilla is an irregular army. The Hukbalahap was composed of communists, but there were also guerrillas. Irregular gyapon sila, but lain nilang ngalan. Dili man ni komunista ang Cebu Area Command. Hukbong magpapalaya ng bayan started as Hukbalahap, Hukbong Bayan Laban sa Hapon. After the war, it became HMB, the military arm of the Partido Komunista ng Pilipinas. Lahi na siya. Pero guerrilla man God happens during a war. So an irregular army that still needs recognition from a regular army is called a guerrilla. And it usually happens when a country is invaded. So if Russia eventually invades Ukraine, so it now becomes part of Russia. It's now recognized as a province of Russia. If there is a resistance there, it's no longer the army of Ukraine. It's already a guerrilla resistance because the regular army has now disappeared. Surrender naman.
So, daghang salamat. So, our open forum is now done.
Napaisa ako.
Usa na lang yun. Usa. Introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. Hey, ako na si Paul Vincent sa Flag. And then, ang amo lang pangutana for both ways, the Japanese tour guides and sa English guides is what equates from Spanish influence to Filipinos is religion and nationhood, and Americans is education to Filipinos.
And sanitation.
But what unsa masag sa more of the Japanese influence to the Filipinos?
This was too short to influence Filipino culture. Nothing influenced us from Japan. It's just too short. 3 years is too short to change the Filipino mindset. Japan, America, 44 years. Complete with mass media. Japanese, wala yun.
So, daghang salamat for dili mahurot ang pangutana. Sige, one na lang yun. Isa pa nga. Di namin mo usab ka, usa na lang. So please introduce yourself.
Mayong hapon, good afternoon. I'm Milet. I excuse me, I'm having sore throat now. However, and then to what was discussed earlier regarding the nationalities' important and or significant contribution when they were here. Uh, is it true, Doctor, that the best contribution that the Japanese gave us is independence? Because they were the first one who really gave the Filipinos independence. Is that correct?
Yes, that's not the influence. People were asking me what influence was left by the Japanese. So it's a cultural thing, but that's a political question. And yes, indeed, that's why Indonesians were pro-Japanese. They were given independence. So with the Malays, so with so many others, the resistance was here because Filipinos did not believe in that independence. But yes, in fact, our embassy, our ambassador's house, are all products of the 1943 Republic. So yes, that's the lasting legacy, not influence, but legacy of Japan.
Politics
No, independence is the lasting legacy of the Japanese.
in the Catholic.
Yes, in fact, Laurel is recognized as a president. He is in the pantheon of presidents of the Philippines because it was recognized. This was an event of war, but independence was granted. And therefore, it's a valid act, political act. Yeah. In Cebu, the lasting legacy, not influence, of Japan is the Mactan Cebu International Airport. The Japanese built that as a military air force. And then afterwards, in 1992, they built the Terminal 1. So we should ask for the Japanese to build more airports. I mean, terminals. They were the ones who started that. That's their lasting legacy. The Mactan International Airport.
Okay, so wala na. Okay na ta. Napag-iusa, Dr. Jobers. If the Japanese were successful in in colonizing us, and if the Japanese
Succeeded in colonizing us?
yes, and Japan and the Philippines would be now part of Japan, would it have been beneficial for the Filipino people? If because Japan has a good economy.
That's a very
This is from JV Gabs online.
That's a very tricky question. The answer would be, was American colonization beneficial to the Philippines? If it was, then Japanese colonization, if it lasted long, would have been beneficial. So, if we say dili beneficial ang American, di sa na beneficial ang Japanese. Kay invasion, maguna, new culture imposed on you. So, if you accept that culture, it's beneficial. If you don't, it's not. So, what is your judgment of American colonization? Did it help us? And therefore, if the Japanese colonized us, you would still resist. You will probably know Ikebana, speak Japanese, but deep inside, your being Filipino would still come out.
Yes. So, Dr. Jobers, you will still have your closing statement after this trivia quiz. So, because she would help judge if the answers would be correct. So, we made this. So, these are just 3 questions of 3 minutes. First question, I know there is a one question which is not here. So, the 2 questions would be for those on site. So the first question, it's an intro question because the prize would be given by the flag, the tour guides group. So it is not here, so I just made the question right now in my mind. So we are not able to prepare. So the next 3 questions would have prizes both from palm grass and from the flag. So the first question is this. Name that very important battle that lasted 10 days against between the Japanese forces and the guerrillas, the Cebu guerrilla. Raise your hand, the one who wants to answer, and go to the microphone. Introduce yourself. Name of the battle that lasted 10 days.
Dr. Sinibabag.
Your name?
I'm Raymond Pros.
Congratulations. You win a, say prize? Asa na siya? Jewelry box. Jewelry box from, you will,
Klaruhan, adaan yun.
jewelry box from Flag Tour Guides, and you would put there the treasures from the Japanese that you got from your treasure hunting, or the food, or the for the fake maps. So daghang salamat. And then so the next question, the prize would be both from Palmgrass and from Flag. So this is the first question. The prize from Palmgrass is a free massage from Alima Native Massage, hilot sa likod ug ulo, and of course you get a free orasyon, a healing prayer with your massage. So the orasyon which gave magical powers to the guerrillas. So the question is this: name 2 schools in Cebu City where the Japanese used as their quarters. So this is for the on-site audience. So please go, the one who would, kisa man to nag-raise sa kamot. So si Miss Koan in front.
Cebu Normal University
Two.
and the University of the Philippines.
Congratulations! Grabe bright kayo mga students ni Dr. Jobersoy. So you win a free hilot sa ulo o likod. And then also you win, unsa na ang prize? Gold bar? Ha? It is a tumbler. So when you go hiking, searching for the treasures, you will be taking the tumbler when you search for the treasures. So the next question is for the online audience only. The online audience who are not here. So the ones here on site, there's still the third question where you can answer, but you will answer through the comment section. So the next question for the online audience is, and then you will win a free Alima Native Massage again, foot massage, so that you will have the power in your feet when you are searching for the gold bars and the sites, the battle sites of the war. So this is the question for the online audience, very hard. Okay, I read the book of Dr. Jobers last night. That's how yesterday I read this War in Cebu, and I saw this in one of the pages. So this is the question. Give the name of the valley in Mualbual, Cebu, where many Japanese were killed by an ambush by the guerrillas. It's online, so at the comment section is very hard. Listen kayo. So, where is that valley? This is, Dr. Jobers mentioned this because I asked him about that battle in Mualbual. So there is a barrio in Mualbual. And then, so there is a barrio in Mualbual where, and they will also, there was a battle that happened. So walay maka-answer? Did someone answer? Wala gyud ni answer. Naay na answer pero wrong. so wala gyud, wa gyud maka-answer ani. Asa man ni hatag ni nato sa online. Sige. So you can also answer but through the comment section. What is the name of that valley in Mualbual where there was an ambush? Many Japanese were killed by an ambush by the guerrillas. Happy. It's not a happy valley for the guerrillas, but not happy for the... So you win a free hilot sa tiil when you trace the battle sites of the war against Japan. So kinsa may mo answer? Wala? No, walay naka-answer, walay nabinaw ani kay Ilisa na to ang Ilisa na lang nato. Ha? Sa on-site, sige, on-site nga. Verbal na lang ko no, oral answer. Naay mo answer? Wrong. It's not a happy valley. the valley is not happy. The guerrillas were happy in that valley because the success, the ambush was successful. Sige, sige.
Miss, I was really about to ask sir about to emphasize what was that because he mentioned it earlier. That is very useful for Suri-Suri Sugbo because we usually have a stop there in that area. But now it became a question. So,
So the answer is
it's not really clear for us the term.
Ako na lang na ako mo na price ani.
Samot pang nasa online dito klaro.
Dili kalaro. So we will change na lang the answer. The question. Ikaw na lang himo question. Natay laing camera, naputol ang camera ni Dr. Jobbers. Change the question. Can you have that camera for Dr. Jobbers? Ang sabi na. Nakay question Dr. Jobbers for this to change because the answer for that is si Dr. Jobbers ya po mo answer. Tumunoy. Tumunoy. Oh, all O.
Sir Jovers, is that a barangay now in Moalboal or no? It's really a valley lang talaga.
Kanang na di ay? Congratulations. Watay bagong answer di ay. Tumunoy. Ryle J. Grate. Did they answer before Dr. Jobber said the answer? Yes, Ryle, is this on site? On site. Congratulations to Tumunoy. Tumunoy. It's all O but it's pronounced, of course, gahi man ta. So gahi yun ni Tumunoy. To, dili ho. Tumunoy. Tumunoy. Ryle J. Grate, congratulations. You win a free hilot sa tiil when you come to Cebu at Palmgrass, the Cebu Heritage Hotel. And you have an additional prize of, unsa na siya? Huh? You have a baking tray from the tour guides of Cebu. So you will be baking while reminiscing about the war. So, and of course, you will have free hilot sa tiil. The last question. This is both for online and on-site audience, but everyone will answer through the comment section. And this is, asa gani ang price from the tour guides that they will give to the one? Wow, free wine for Christmas. Ang saan nga wine? Hardin wine. So please show the question. So the price from Palmgrass is a free therapeutic hulum kawa. Like the Japanese, they want to be immersed in hot water. They want to bathe in hot water.
Ma'am, let me answer.
Wapay answer. Wapay question.
Ma'am.
Wala pa'y question.
Give the month and year. We're nearly 10,000.
Mao na day.
Okay.
Give that. No, you can't answer through that. You answer through the comment section.
Wala man ko na live.
Hindi, dili. Kuan ra gyud kanang comment section of the give the month and year when nearly 10,000 Japanese soldiers surrendered in Cebu. You answer through nanay ni answer on site.
Sige na lang. Hachigatsu.
Online.
Singkuya ko yon jugo.
So is this correct? Is this correct? The Janet Panis answers March 26, 1945 to August only. So the answer so this is not the correct. So answer, so it is the month and year. We did not ask for the date. But then is it okay that they gave the date? Is it accurate? Huh? So the answer is March. No, it's not March. So we have, so the month and year only. The 10,000 surrenders. It's in your, when 10,000 Japanese soldiers surrendered in Cebu, I did not ask for the date, the actual day, because it's not it did not happen for only one day.
Yeah, but she answered because Sir Jobers a while ago was explaining that it was not a one time like
Yes.
surrender. So there were months.
Uh, so do we have the camera for Dr. Jobbers? So but then
Gotcha, sing.
I guess the one who got the correct the correct answer is Kulas
Hi.
Damaso on site. Online. Kulas
Pero di man
Damaso.
apil ang needs hat kay kuan man month laman iya ang gats.
Month and year. So Kulas Damaso. Kulas Damaso says August 1945. So this is the correct answer. August 1945. Dili 44, 45. No, no. Ang first niyang answer he answered twice. The first answer was 1944 December. And then he answered for the second time, Kulas Damaso answered August 1945. So, unsa man ni? Sige na lang, okay na ni. Kay if dili kay si Marv susad mo makadaog and he has won 2 times already. Si Marv Bascon. So, congratulations Kulas Damaso for winning the wine from red wine from Tour Guides of Cebu, and also 10,000 hulum kawa. Only one kawa bath. Therapeutic kawa bath. So now we would like to get the closing statement from Dr. Jobbers Reyes Bersales. After that, the tour guides would like to present the certificate of appreciation, recognition for Dr. Jobbers for being the resource person. So we will just have Dr. Jobbers in his seat while he speaks his closing words for this event.
Thank you for the invitation to be present here. I feel like I'm the Emperor of Japan, the way I'm seated here. So it's always a pleasure to talk about history. Remember, I was not born in the war. But what I told you is available in a few publications. So if you have the time, you can also read these publications and these books so that you can further understand what happened during the war. So once again, thank you for the invitation. Thank you for those on the online platforms for watching. And please continue to support Palmgrass and Flag also in their programs. Daghang salamat.
Yes. So we would like to request Dr. Jobbers to accept the token from Flag and also the certificate from Flag. So
the Palmgrass Hotel, Cebu Heritage Hotel.
Yes.
The Palmgrass Cebu Heritage Hotel and Flag Incorporated would like to award the certificate of appreciation to Dr. Jobbers Reyes Bersales for dedicating her time and effort as a resource person for the hybrid event Gerilya, War in Cebu versus Japan. We value you have done, and we continue to thank you. Given this 9th day of December 2022 at Palmgrass Hotel, Junquera Street, Cebu City, Philippines. Signed, Agripina Givelindo, Chief of Executive Officer, Palmgrass Hotel, Edwin Alcazon, President, Flag Incorporated.
Daghang salamat. Daghang salamat. So, daghang salamat to Dr. Jobbers and daghang salamat to Flag. So we also invite you to our upcoming events on December 29, Pasko sa Kagawasan, and also on December 31, Tagpo 2023. We would also like to thank again our partner in this event, Flag Cebu, with the USC Center for Social Research and Education, Museo Sugbo, Central Visayas Association of Museums, the Yandi Heritage Center, SOAN 2020 Incorporated. Dahil salamat, ug maayong hapon, ug malipayong Pasko natong tanan.
So daghan kaayong salamat